Well, it's that time again, that time when we step into the virtual bar, our favorite brand of whiskey in hand, to discuss voter turnout, or voter non-turnout, as it were, whichever one applies. I'm joined today by Greg and Ken, and I'm your host, Chris, and this is Three Pastors Walk Into a Voting Booth. You didn't know we were rebranding, did you?
That's what we're going to do.
Special
I have
election
not
edition.
walked into a voting booth
Special election edition. Yeah, it's special, all right.
yet. Have you voted, Chris?
No, not yet.
You're gonna...
Yeah, I'll do that tomorrow morning.
Ken?
No, not yet.
Oh,
We were too slow in calling the election people and telling them we wanted an absentee ballot.
Okay.
Yeah, you could have gone down to, I mean, we had entertained thought, or I had entertained thoughts of going down to Coeur d'Alene to the election office and voting early. But, I mean, I could just vote Tuesday right here and by my house. So
There's something nice about going down.
Doing it early? Did you vote early?
No, not doing it early. Going down to the voting place, you know. I mean,
Oh.
you see a lot of the
Going
neighbors.
through the motions.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's kind of a ritual.
Make you feel like you've done your civic duty.
Yeah, you get your sticker, you know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And come out and get to talk to
I mean,
several people there.
I think people who went to vote early got a sticker too.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
I'm sure they did.
I don't know.
I got mine from the primary.
Did you?
Yeah,
You'll get one from this one too.
that'll be great.
Yeah.
Collect them all.
If Prop 1 passes, you may never get another primary.
That's the scary one on the ballot.
Yep.
Vote no on Prop 1.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
that is the opinion of this.
Yeah, it's a pretty wretched piece of policy.
Yeah, it's bait and switch.
Oh yeah. It's just a means. I mean, the Democrats know that they're never going to win on Idaho, especially northern Idaho. So it's just a way to get their candidates in there and be able to tell you that they're Republican without saying that they're Democrat.
Yeah. Boy, there was a lot of ad money spent on that.
Oh man, isn't there?
Over $1 million.
Wow.
And the ads were just
Don't be
incessant.
duped. Don't be duped.
Yeah, some of the election campaign stuff that's coming out is just really hilarious. Like last night we were watching the football game, which don't get me started on how bad the Seahawks are this year. But
How bad are the Seahawks?
oh my gosh. It is so embarrassing. We went into the half leading 13-3, I think. And then by the end of the game, we were tied going into overtime, lost it by 6 in overtime.
Well, that doesn't sound like a bad team. That sounds like a team.
No, it's a terrible team because we had 2 interceptions and 2 red zone trips. So, and then one of those interceptions was in pick 6 for 106 yards, 103 yards.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Got
and
it
then
in the end zone, huh?
Yep, and then the other one was in the end zone as well, but it didn't go all the way back. But still, you know, it's like that's two touchdowns we should have had that ended up being interceptions because the O-line is terrible. Our O-line is just absolute nonsense. Like people are all over our quarterback. They're like, "Oh yeah, he's terrible. He can't throw the ball." It's like, well, you could put Tom Brady in that slot with that offensive line and he would suck. So, you know, until that's fixed. Anyways, I could go on and on and on because it just infuriates me.
I got you started.
It happens. But in any case, I don't even remember what I was going to say. I'm so infuriated.
Intro?
By that. No, it's about the election thing. So there was this video.
Stickers.
There was this video for Kamala, this commercial for Kamala that came on. and it was this farmer, rough and tough, kind of tumble kind of looking guy, and he was like, I'm voting for Kamala because I want to save our democracy, kind of thing. And it's like,
is it an actor?
Well, first of all, you're adorable. We don't live in a democracy. So
Republic.
you're just declaring your stupidity. But other than that, from what? What are you saving it from? It's this same old rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really obnoxious.
Bring back the joy.
Oh
Bring
man,
back the joy.
like the next time I hear her say Project 2025 and relate it to Trump, I'm just going to go off the rails and scream because it's just ridiculous. And they just keep pushing the same narrative over and over and over again. And it is just an outright lie.
Yeah, say something loud enough and long enough, people will believe it.
Yeah, even liberals pick up on it. Like the big talking point after the Madison Square Garden thing was the comparison to the Hitler event that took place there back in the 40s or whatever it was. And they play that thing as a backdrop for what happened in Madison Square Garden. It's so dishonest. And then the other one was during that thing, he was talking about what a war hawk that Liz Cheney is. And he was saying, she's more than willing to send, thousands of our troops over to be shot at, but put her in front of 9 people with guns and see how she reacts to that, and it's like, and then the media took off with that, telling everybody that Trump said that he wanted her to stand in front of a shooting squad. It's like, even Bill Maher commented on that. He's like, I don't like Trump, but don't lie to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the lies are so obvious. I don't understand how you could not see them as lies. You just have to not want to see them.
Yep.
That's what it boils down to. You have to want them to be true. And it's just, that's kind of how that whole campaign, the whole left side of the campaign has been ran on this platform of lies. Just blatant, outright lies. That if you are a thinking, believing Christian and you have a choice between 2 parties, which you should choose, definitely don't choose the party of lies and the party of death and the party of murder and the party of
open borders,
and destruction of voting rights. I mean, it's like, why would you do that? I just don't understand. But yeah, that's kind of what it was during the game. It was just like nonstop ads from Kamala. I mean, I don't know if that's a desperation move or if it's just like the kind of last gasp.
I saw, and it was ABC News, I think, said they showed a bunch of polls, and Kamala was leading in every single one of those polls.
Of course.
Oh, sure she was.
Yeah, and I'm like, wait a minute.
That's what happens when you go
fake.
to UC Berkeley and you take a poll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing was, she wasn't leading by much in any of them. So
Well, that's
just
kind of
trying to make people feel good about voting for her.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, though, right? It's like she's, even in the polls that favor her, she's not leading that much. So there are people who are predicting that this is going to be a Reagan-esque type electoral college win for Trump, and that there's just going to be a landslide. Is that true or not? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe
it
it's
seems
not.
that way if it's allowed to run its course.
If it's allowed to be legitimate,
Yeah.
if there's not any cheating going on, which, I mean, we all know that there's definitely going to be cheating. It happens every election. And then there will be the standard, denying of the election results that apparently only Trump has ever done that. But nonetheless, there will be the litigation that follows, and all that kind of stuff. And so we likely won't know who the next president is until the end of the week, legitimately.
Yeah.
So
unless it is just an absolute landslide.
Unless it's just an absolute landslide that is like, well, okay, but I mean,
Can't argue that.
can't argue
right?
with that. I mean, it's like, But it would have to be that. And it's predicted to be so close in the kind of majority vote that I imagine that it's going to be a lot of that kind of legalese. I mean, they've been using the DOJ against Trump for all these years anyways. I mean, why not? Use the Department of Justice to investigate these electoral things and get them involved with that. Who knows? But in any case, yeah, it's a mess. And then you had this.
Are we into this?
Into what?
The podcast here.
Yeah.
All right. We forgot.
We're
the
recording.
Disclaimer.
It doesn't matter. Yeah,
We
it doesn't
finally
matter.
figured that
Let's
out.
see if we can get a strike.
do that. Go ahead and do the disclaimer, and then I want go ahead and do the disclaimer, and then I want to talk about SNL
No.
because that's a funny thing that happened. So go ahead and do the disclaimer for Greg.
Don't listen to what we say.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of what it
Moving
boils
right
down
along.
to, right?
We don't really mean it.
May the rhetoric be with you.
No, we do. Oh, Greg's holding his breath. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the respective speakers and do not necessarily reflect the opinions, policies, or doctrines of Athens Baptist Church and its members.
Nice.
Whoa,
You can-
nice.
you can
One
breathe.
breath.
Yeah. So,
Oh, thank
anyways, I don't know if you guys heard this or not, but this last Saturday, Kamala appeared on Saturday Night Live.
Oh, did not know that.
Yeah. The thing is that nobody knows how big of a deal and how illegal that was. Since SNL is broadcasted on a public news service that gets its airwaves from the FCC, they're required by law to give any election candidate equal time.
Ooh.
Yep. And so by SNL inviting her on Saturday before the election, they have no possibility of getting Trump on before the election. So they violated FCC rules.
Now, Trump
They could lose their license.
Trump has been
But
on
they
there
won't.
a couple of times.
I don't know. It depends on who gets in office.
I wonder if they are utilizing or saying that, Trump was there last year before. He's been on there several times.
It doesn't matter.
So
It doesn't matter.
that's-
It only matters this election cycle.
So when does this election cycle start? A year ago?
Well, it doesn't matter. He hasn't been on SNL.
Yeah, he has.
Not in decades. The last time he was on SNL was way
Not-
before he was president. Yeah, he wasn't. Yeah, they hated him when he was running for president.
Fact check that, Greg.
I'm fact checking it. We have to fact check it. Continue on. I'll chime in.
No, I'm going to
later.
wait because I want to see. I'm curious too.
When was Donald Trump last seen on Saturday Night Live?
Tell us, Google.
Tell us. Talk to me, Google. 23 hours ago.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incorrect.
Oh, they said Sunday Night Football. Okay. Trump. There it is. The Guardian. NBC gives Trump equal airtime after complaint over Harris's SNL
Oh, did they?
appearance. Yeah. Broadcaster says ex-president's address to voters after NASCAR race on Sunday complied with federal fairness rules. NBC on Sunday filed notice that the broadcast network had provided Donald Trump equal time to Kamala Harris's surprise appearance on Saturday Night Live by providing him a chance to directly address voters following a NASCAR race. Oh, so it wasn't SNL, it was NBC as a whole.
I'm not sure that qualifies.
Oh.
In fact, based on that, I'm wondering if they haven't violated that with Kamala by giving Trump so much airtime on the news in a negative light, but still, like all you ever hear them talk about is Trump, 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 Trump. You know, it's all evil.
Did you see
but
that?
It's interesting
video
thought.
with Kamala. She was at one of her rallies, and they clipped out all the times she said Donald Trump. It was like 25 times she used Donald Trump, in a negative connotation each time.
Mm-hmm.
But it was interesting. She is putting his name out there more than anybody else.
You know, if you think about it, that's a total waste of time. to have Kamala appear on SNL and appeal to her constituency, and then have Trump appear on NASCAR and appeal to his constituency, that's just them preaching to the choir.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That accomplished nothing. Gosh, what a waste of time and money.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be firing somebody. I'd be like, who thought of this? Who thought that this would be a good idea? Yeah, anyways, it doesn't show, all it shows with Trump and SNL is what happened. It's like I'd have to dig for an hour to find the last time he appeared on SNL. But I would be willing to wager that it was prior to his previous presidency.
Probably.
Yeah, I can't imagine SNL having him on after he got elected for president. That would they just don't like him. They hate him that much.
Yeah.
They
And
just
he's a guy
despise
who
him.
does not waste his time.
Nah, he's not
And,
going to waste his time going on there. Anyways, you got anything else fun you want to talk about before we get into today's topic, Greg?
8 years ago.
8 years ago. That sounds about right. Yep, that sounds about right.
Towards the beginning of his first term.
Yeah, probably as he was running, maybe.
Yeah.
Because they still were enamored with him because everybody was assuming that he wasn't going to get into office. So they were like, oh,
Yeah.
this is
Well,
fun.
let's have
He was
fun
still a
with this.
celebrity.
This is a fun joke. Ha ha ha.
Fun with Donald.
And then he got into office and everybody's like, what just happened? Yeah.
Okay, I got something. OCC, Operation Christmas Child, our chili cook-off, we raised $7,222 to help box and ship our OCC boxes.
Wow.
Overseas.
And how many boxes we
Thank
got
you.
so far?
We're in the 200 range.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
So that-
hoping for close to 5.
That covers the,
More than
Postage
covers
for
it.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that allows us to
that would
make more
be
boxes.
700 something boxes, right? Because
Mhm.
it's like $10 a box.
Yeah,
Isn't that what it is?
box. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
It was a lot of fun, too.
So, it was a blast.
Yep.
Had fun with it.
Kim won the chili cook-off.
did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
She's got this killer chili recipe that is, yeah, she's worked on it pretty hard. But hey, man, hard work pays off, right?
It does.
Mhm.
It does.
So congratulations,
and
Good
babe.
job, Kim.
I know she's listening. So congratulations, babe, on winning with your intricate chili recipe.
all good. Adriana won a few years back, and she says, "My chili's nothing special." And I said, "Exactly.
Yeah,
that's
that's
what people
usually the
like.
best kind.
You know, we don't want to get our nose hairs fried when we eat something like that."
You know,
And people have figured that out. There was no extreme hot chilies.
well, that's a disappointment.
If you just wanted to, fry yourself, sweat through the rest of the dinner, that would have been it.
That's
But,
what
yeah,
chili
we didn't
is.
Have any.
Yeah. No, the funny thing is that she made that same chili last year and she didn't even place. So
What
she
was
went
the
from-
secret ingredient?
she went from not placing to
First.
being first.
Yeah.
Did she
Okay.
buy off the judges?
So, Kim, what'd you put in there?
I didn't even know who the judges were.
I don't either.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't guess it matters, unless you're mad at them.
Yeah.
Then I guess it matters. All right, so let's get into what we're talking about today. We're talking about voter turnout or potential voter turnout or voter turnout for early election results kind of stuff. So a lot of media outlets are bemoaning surveys that seem to indicate that vast numbers of Americans won't be voting in tomorrow's general election. In particular, Christians seem to be avoiding the polls. We've commented about this in an issue or in a podcast recently, but many reasons are given. Among the most common being disillusionment with election integrity and dislike for both of the presidential candidates. And so I think that
What do you think? What are, if this is true, what are Christians waiting for? Billy Graham, who can no longer run for president, running for president? Are they looking for something like that?
I really don't know.
What would cause that disillusion?
I think some of it is just what's the point? I think a lot of people don't vote because what's the point? You know, it's like my vote doesn't matter anyways. It's one vote. And if you live in Idaho, it would probably be easier for you to think that because it's so traditionally swings red in the Electoral College that you're probably like, meh, what's it matter if I vote or not? It's just going to go red anyways. So, you know, what's one more vote for red, you know, or, you know, even if you're a Democrat, you know, you might say, well, what's one more vote for blue? It's not going to matter anyways. So there probably is a little bit of kind of complacency, apathy. Apathy is probably a better word.
You know, we lost Scott Herndon up there in District 1.
Yeah.
And I can't remember. He lost by just a handful of votes. So it does matter in these smaller elections.
And the smaller ones for sure.
Yeah.
You know, and I think the shame is that people get so caught up in national politics that they forget that the one that you have the most influence over is your state politics.
State, man, yeah.
And it's probably the most important as well.
Is. Yeah. You know, it all starts off down there.
That's the most direct impact on your daily life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Your kids.
In fact, I'll be honest with you. When I saw that he had lost, I went, oh, man, because a couple of times I thought, I'm going to get me a Scott Herndon sign for my yard. And I didn't.
Oh, well, that's why I lost.
I'm not going to take responsibility
Scott,
for his loss.
We're terribly sorry.
We are sorry. It's
that
my fault.
Greg didn't put a sign up in his yard. It is his fault that you lost.
Those 8 votes are on my road.
Wow, Greg. I hope you're
happy.
happy.
I'm taking responsibility.
Well, that's true. At least you're manning up and taking responsibility for your failures.
Scott, call me first, you know, in a couple years. Let me know if you want me on your campaign.
Wow, let me recommend something to you.
Okay. Don't put that on.
Don't put that guy on there. That's for sure. He won't put your sign in his yard.
I will now.
I don't put signs in my yard because nobody would see them.
Yeah. Well, I'd have to put it on the end of the road, the end of the driveway.
Yeah, I guess I could do that. I could put it out by the road, but that wouldn't be in my front yard. That'd be out in the woods.
Yeah.
So,
hey, Parks Road, busy place.
It is a busy place.
Yeah.
Increasingly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, ours is too. We went from 3 mailboxes when we moved in to like over 35 right now.
Oh, yeah. And then it's like, here's another tangent for you. What happened to people knowing how to drive? I just don't know. It's like they're either going 20 miles over the speed limit or they're going 20 miles under the speed limit. Nobody can go just the speed limit. I don't understand. What's going on?
I don't either. But
it doesn't make any sense to me.
It's a real thing.
It's like it's posted right there. Yeah. It's like speed limit 45. So you could go 45 and somebody invariably will pass you like a stone.
Yep.
That's the new out-stater moved in, and they're used to going 70
yeah,
and 45.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Well,
and those going 25 in the 45 were all the retired native Idahoans.
He's pointing at me.
Those are almost worse. Because then you're like, come up behind them, they're going 20 miles an hour down Parks Road, and you're like,
what do I do?
Really?
Well, where to pass.
Last night, coming home, I got to my driveway, and I was just about ready to turn left, and just happened to look, dirt roads, quiet dirt road, North Idaho. I look in my rearview mirror, and here comes this motorcycle at about 45, 50 miles an hour. Zing! Right on by me, and I thought, man, if I hadn't looked, I would have taken him out. I was turning up my driveway. Didn't use my signal. My bad. But I would have had a teenager splattered against my sign.
Against your door.
Yeah.
Yeah. So getting back to our point.
What was the
John
point?
Adams, in his inaugural address, said this: "We should never lose sight of the danger to our liberties if anything partial or extraneous should infect the purity of our free, fair, virtuous, and independent elections."
That is profound.
In today's day and age,
we were dealing with this kind of issue from the beginning.
Yeah, it's been. Nothing new is there's nothing new under the sun. The Bible tells us this.
Ecclesiastes.
If you're dealing with something now, it's been dealt with before. And election fraud is just kind of one of those things that you're going to have it every single election. You know, I mean, I think that a big deal got made out of it at the Trump election because it was so close that the rolls of illegitimate ballots probably did make a difference. I don't know that there were enough to make a full difference or not. I don't know all the details. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. I don't know. But still, you know, it brought attention to an obvious failing. And it's already happening in this election. There's already video footage of mules dropping off stacks of ballots into ballot boxes. I mean, this is already happening in states where you could just drop your ballot off in some kind of slot. And
people in Oregon burning ballot boxes.
Oh yeah, and
blowing
then
them up.
there was that whole stack of ballots that they found in I think it was Pennsylvania, where all of them had the same handwriting, and there was literally hundreds of them, and so there's definite cheating going on. Now, is that part of the Democratic or the Democrat kind of convention doing that? I don't think so. I think what you have is you have unhinged people that will do anything to keep Trump out of office. And they've heard such rhetoric over and over again: Hitler, Nazi, fascist, tyrant, going to use the military to control his opponents, he's heard this rhetoric. They've heard this rhetoric over and over and over and over again for all this time. And so they're like, well, it's my moral obligation to do whatever I have to do to keep him out of office so he doesn't destroy our democracy. And they see themselves as patriots.
And that's kind of an oxymoron when you say moral obligation with what they're doing.
If you are on the side of thinking that Trump is a fascist dictator, then you would find yourself thinking that it is legitimate that you do whatever is required to fight against him. You would think that that's revolutionary.
Including picking up a gun and sitting in a golf course.
To shoot at him, to murder him. Yep. Yeah, and so I think that the media bears a lot of responsibility when it comes to the voter fraud, now, there are some things that I just feel like are part of the administration, and that is the illegal immigration issue. It wouldn't be so blatant if they weren't coming across the border and then being shipped to swing states. If they were distributing kind of naturally, that would be one thing. But these people are being bussed, flown, transported to swing states, into places where their vote is going to change the county's vote so that electoral college will be persuaded to vote in the direction of the Democrats. And so, I think there's definitely something going on there. Could it be proven? I don't know. Maybe there's an internal memo.
I think it's proven.
I think it's obvious
by the fact that it's happening.
Yeah, but something happening and something being proven to be linked to someone are two different things.
Complicity.
Yeah, and you'd have to find some type of evidentiary link between the administration and the process, which you probably could do if you were able to get enough things going. But, I mean, you got 50 whistleblowers coming forward to talk about it, and nothing's happening? It's like, okay, well, what are all these congressional hearings for? I'm convinced that congressional hearings are pointless. They have no purpose because nothing ever happens in them. They just get a whole bunch of footage of them, railing against somebody for whatever thing. It's like the Republicans do that. The Democrats do that. It's just grandstanding for votes is all it is. Nothing really happens out of them. I mean, Hunter Biden walked out of one and nothing ever happened to him. And that was Republican led. Yep. So if there was something going to happen, you would think that they would prosecute him. But obviously nothing ever happened. So, what was the point of that?
Well, how many times have you seen Kennedy rake somebody over the coals to the point where they should go from the hearing all the way into the jail cell? He's done such a good job. And yet, nothing, like you said, nothing happens.
Nothing. Yeah, they're pointless.
Nothing happens.
Just absolutely pointless. But in any case, unless somebody's willing to bring forward a lawsuit in actual court, or convict a crime in actual court. But in order to do that, you'd have to have a DOJ willing to prosecute.
Right.
Well, when you're using the DOJ to focus on prosecuting Trump for something that didn't even happen, I mean, it's like, okay, well, there you go. No wonder we don't have time to prosecute anybody for illegal immigration because we're too busy trying to nail Trump.
Yeah.
But in any case, I digress. These are the kind of things that I think people just get disillusioned by. They're like, why vote? What would be the point? It's like you vote for these people and nothing actually happens. It's like, when was the last time you heard of anything from our state representatives? Not our state representatives, our state representatives to the federal government.
To the federal government,
Okay.
yeah.
When was the last time you ever heard anything?
You don't hear much from them.
No.
It's pretty silent.
Yeah.
But I've heard a little bit in the last month because they're running for office again, some of them.
You never hear anything that they're doing.
Yeah, and I've reached out to them to do something with this program, and you never even get a response.
Yeah.
We're
Not
just-
even a statement.
We're just too small for them.
Not even a statement. You don't get a statement. You don't get nothing. So
I will, I mean, I'm on the newsletter, for our state representatives. So
our
I
state
get that,
representatives are good.
yeah, even federal. I mean, Jim.
I don't know.
Jim Risch and
Are they?
Well,
I don't know.
I get I signed up, so I get their newsletter, monthly, quarterly, maybe. So I do know a little bit about what they're doing, but outside of that, nothing. You're right, nothing. They're not on the news. They're not
making any
Until
effort.
election year, then you get the report. I've done this, and I've done that, and I've changed, and
Instead of spending all that money on election stuff, maybe they could have spent a little bit of that money actually actively pursuing the act of getting information to the constituency throughout the year. It's like, or at the end of every quarter, or twice a year. Come on to, go on a campaign where you go around and you talk to local news networks and you talk to local podcasts and you talk to like all the news sources where people are getting their news and say, look, this is what I've done the past quarter. These are the things that I voted for. This is why I didn't vote for this. This is why I didn't vote for this. This is why I voted for that, and kind of just go through some of the 30,000 foot view of what I've done. But they don't do that because why?
even our governor did a local town hall up in Priest River a little while back.
Yeah. Wow, that's impressive.
That was a day in the Capitol kind of a thing where they basically did business in the town.
Yeah.
And his whole cabinet went with him. And
Yeah.
That was pretty decent. It was I found out about it too late for us to go, but that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more of it.
That's one good thing about Bob Norris, our sheriff in Kootenai County. He is actively involved.
He is visible
in talking to the community. I mean, he is constantly talking to the community. He has one time a month where they have their staff meeting outside of the sheriff's department. They go somewhere and have their meeting elsewhere because he wanted everybody to be visible. It's like, we're part of this community. We're going to be part of this community. It's like something to consider.
Yeah. And there's another race that needs to be thought out.
You got
Jim
sheriff
Wilson.
And Dan.
Dan Wilson.
Yeah. And, decent guy. I don't have any problems with Dan. I mean, you got two choices, between, who you're going to vote for. I can tell you this, that, whatever is being said, Bob Norris has done an outstanding job. And, I think that should be considered going forward. But, obviously you have to make a decision who you're going to vote for and why, and think about those reasons, and consider, the past and the histories. And you got some time to look at to do that. But, so obviously there's a whole lot of people that are complaining that the voter turnout is going to be low, which traditionally it kind of is. But according to the Coeur d'Alene Press article last week, the number of early absentee ballots cast in Idaho for the November 5th general election have already surpassed the total ballots cast statewide in the May primary election. Turnout for this election is breaking records, and in-person voting hasn't even started as of the time we recorded this podcast. Now, by the time this podcast gets put out, we will have already voted. But of the general election ballots cast at the time, 155,000 were from early voting, and 138,000 were absentee ballots. So,
wow,
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
In Kootenai County, a total of 24,547 residents requested absentee ballots, and 18,000 of those ballots have been returned. That's a return rate of about 75%, on par with statewide return rate. Early voting numbers are also high. Kootenai County Clerk said that she expects more than 19,000 people to vote early in Kootenai County by the end of the early voting period. She anticipates more than 90,000 of Kootenai County's 113,000 plus voters to participate in this election. Think about that. That's a lot.
Yep.
While election manager Asa Gray thinks the number of participating voters could rise as high as 100,000, officials say they expect a total turnout between 85 and 90%.
That's unheard of.
Way to go, Idaho.
I know, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that is really, really impressive.
That's phenomenal.
But also, think about it. Both campaigns have been on this effort to encourage people to go vote for like the last month.
It's true.
I mean, particularly like Elon Musk, he's really been pushing like, go out, register to vote. You need to vote. Anytime you listen to Daily Wire, they'll tell you it's important that you vote. This is the most important election of your life. And I think that the sense that this is a really important election is felt by everybody. I think that this election is going to break records across the board nationwide.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I think that people are just activated. And I think particularly Trump supporters are activated. You know, I mean, people are of all veins are just tired of the status quo. They really are. When you got a group of people like Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, Robert Kennedy, Elon Musk, J.D. Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy, you got the whole board. You got from deeply conservative Christian to libertarian, and then every form of liberal in between. That's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you want to talk about a uniting presence. That's pretty impressive.
Are we on the, where are we? Are we on the right? Are we in the middle? Where are we? Are we missing something in terms of, we did this last time, 4 years ago. I sat across dinner tables from people, and the rhetoric was, there is no way Donald Trump is going to lose this election. It is going to happen, guaranteed. And it didn't. Are we missing something this time around?
No, I think that I think that at the end of that election between him and Biden, that there was so much publicity about election fraud that people are just like, that's not going to happen again.
Mm-hmm.
I think people are just mad.
Yeah.
I think people are just angry, and they are using their vote to state how angry that they are. And they're done. They feel like they've been abused. They feel like they've been molested by the government. And
I hope that's right.
they're really
I do
tired
too,
of it.
yeah.
I really think that's true.
Do you think that's true for both the left and the right?
I think so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people who consider themselves to be classical liberals are just bailing from a Democratic Party that has abandoned them. I think that you know, you have guys like Bill Maher who are going to vote for Kamala just because she's a Democrat, which is really what it boils down to.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But still in all, you know, he'll tell you that the Democratic Party that is represented today is not the Democratic Party that he was part of. In fact, Bobby Kennedy will tell you.
Yeah.
He left not because he abandoned the Democratic Party, but because the Democratic Party abandoned him.
Mm-hmm.
This progressivism that is part of the Democratic ticket now, people don't want it. And so that's why when you look at video of interviews at these Trump rallies, you get every race, you get every religion, and you get every sexual preference. Like, there is so many homosexuals that support Trump.
Mm-hmm.
It's mind-boggling. And it's like, it's wild because you've seen how, like, these conservative groups and these liberal groups can definitely unite under a banner of freedom when it's being attacked. And that's what's happening. I think that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why voter turnout is so high, because it doesn't matter if you're right or left of center. I think it is a mandate against progressive policy. I think that's what it is.
Let's hope.
Freedom serves both
let's hope
sides.
so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's a great way of putting that. Freedom does. And I think that's what people are seeing. And then when they roll out rhetoric, like when she's in Georgia and she says stuff like, well, this girl died with this abortion because of Trump's national abortion ban. It's like, that's not even a thing.
Mm-hmm.
He's not even in office. How can he ban abortion? It's like, what are you talking about? It's like, people see that and they're just done. They're just done with being lied to. And Trump, for all of his failures in communication, his inability to be able to have the same type of command of rhetoric that J.D. Vance has, is really part of his charm.
Mm-hmm.
Because when he gets like to debate with Kamala, and he says the thing that he says, I've said this before, but people were bashing him because he's like, oh, he missed all these opportunities. Like, no, Trump did exactly what Trump should have done. He said exactly what he meant to say. He doesn't miss anything.
Yeah.
He's the dude sitting in his recliner with his Busch beer, watching the debate, saying, yeah, I just said that too. He knows exactly what he's doing. And those are the people that are going to win the election for him.
I watched an interview. I didn't watch the interview. The interviewer, don't remember who it was, which really impressed me because he said Donald Trump, after the interview, walked off the set and talked to my 12-year-old daughter for 20 minutes about her school, what she's studying, what she likes.
Yeah.
He says he's a real man.
He's just a dude.
He's just a dude.
He's just a dude.
And I was listening to this thinking, wow, this guy was impressed by Donald Trump, not by his political views or anything like that, but the fact that he's a real person.
Well, if you have not, listener, listened to that podcast with Joe Rogan, you should listen to that.
With J.D. Vance?
No, with Donald Trump. The J.D. Vance one is good too. I need to listen to the entire thing. I've only listened to pieces of it. But the one with Trump is just bonkers, because one of the things that Joe Rogan is impressed by is that, gosh, they went for 3 hours. And Rogan was like, he didn't drink any water. He didn't drink any coffee. He didn't go to the bathroom. He sat and talked to me for 3 hours. The guy's a rock star. And the things that he says are just like what normal people say. And when he was asking him about his previous, term in office, he was like, Trump was like, hey, I didn't know what I was doing. And when I elected people into positions, I elected people that shouldn't have been there because I didn't know what I was doing. But this time I do. And so he privately funded all of his cabinet appointments. He's not letting the federal government fund them. He funded them himself. And so, from day one, he is funding the people that he's going to put into cabinet. That's bonkers. Yeah, he just completely bypassed the federal government. He's
He
like,
comes up with some unique ideas of cutting through the red tape,
Yes,
going around
yes.
it, burning it down.
yeah.
It's awesome.
And then
like Hillsdale College does not take one penny of federal money so that they can say and teach anything that they want
yeah.
without
Yeah.
any.
To be fair,
Federal oversight.
all Christian schools do that. If they want to maintain their Christian status, all Christian schools do that. Pensacola Christian's been doing that for 100 years. So, yeah, any school that doesn't accept federal funding, you're not going to be able to get a Pell Grant there.
Right.
But also you're going to receive a solid education that's not manipulated by the federal government. And Hillsdale's one of them. Anyways, who are all these new voters, these people that are voting in these elections? Many of them are under the age of 30. According to an Idaho Capital Sun article in early October, more Idahoans under the age of 30 had registered to vote in the previous month than any other age group, according to data from the Idaho Secretary of State's office. Between September 3rd and October 3rd, over 25,000 people registered to vote in the state, with nearly 38%, or around 9,400 people, between the ages of 18 to 29. When President Joe Biden announced his withdrawal from the race in July 21, within 2 days, about 1,200 Idahoans had registered, and almost half of them, 518, were under the age of 30. Similarly, after Taylor Swift endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris for September 10th, for President September 10th, 3,440 Idahoans registered within 2 days. Many of these were new voters, or 45% of them were also under the age of 30. The age group with the most registered voters continues to be Idaho seniors, which are 60 to 74. But still, that's a lot of young people voting in this election. That's important. That's a big deal.
And it appears they're not voting for Trump.
Well,
according to those.
Yeah, I mean,
well, it depends on their reasoning.
Yeah, that just says that after she endorsed it. That doesn't mean that that somebody
go with her.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that they endorsed Kamala because Taylor did. They maybe said, well, if she's going to get all these young people to vote, I guess I should go out there and vote for Trump. Maybe. Who knows? Who knows? Here's an interesting thing. They're mostly not Californian liberals.
Okay.
Which is the arguing point that you hear all the time. It's like you hear people say all the time, it's like all these Californians are coming into Idaho, turning it blue. And there's not a state representative that would agree with you. In fact, Heather has told us many times that if anything, the state's turning more red. Yep. Because these people coming from California are trying to change. They're not trying to change anything. They want it to stay the way that it is. And you might say, well, look at Prop 1. It's like, well, Prop 1 is just a proposition that was put forward by a group of people that were able to get enough signatures on a petition to get it on the ballot. That's all that means. That doesn't mean anything. That and in fact, they could have gotten that many petitions just from the Democratic National Convention here in Idaho, or the convention in Idaho. So that's not a major deal. But it doesn't seem to be the case that they're California liberals. The Idaho Secretary of State's office provides registration data for the public to get an idea of voter demographics, to promote voter confidence, and to dispel misinformation about who is voting in Idaho elections. One of the most popular dashboards on the site, this dashboard called shows how many new voters have come to Idaho from out of state. And you'll often hear people say that Californians are moving here trying to turn the state blue, but the data doesn't support that. In fact, 3/4 of them moving to California registers Republican and are even turning the state more red, which is what we just commented on. How many of them are there? According to the U.S. Census Bureau, estimates that 81,708 people moved to Idaho from different states last year, with the highest totals coming from California at 17,000 and Washington at 14,000. Interestingly, an additional 9,000 people moved to Idaho from a different country. Also last year, around 65,000 people left Idaho for a different state in 2023. An estimated 7,500 Idahoans left for Washington, the highest of any state in a nearly equal trade. Roughly 5,000 people moved to Idaho from Texas, while 5,000 moved to Texas from Idaho. So it seems to be equalizing out a lot of times. In fact, I wonder how many people actually are moving from Idaho because of its deeply red roots. If you're moving from Idaho to Washington, there's only two reasons that you're doing that: because of employment, which I'm not sure why you would take a job in Washington, because you're going to get taxed so much that you're going to be making as much as you would have made here.
Minimum wage.
But still in all, you're either going because your job or you're going because you don't like the politics in Idaho, which is fine. That's what we have different states for.
Exactly.
Yep.
That 9,000 people from a different country is interesting to me.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how many of those were illegal immigrants, how that's all factored in.
Or how many were legal immigrants. Legal immigrants.
Yeah. But yeah, 2 years ago when we started this podcast, I kind of did this same kind of analysis with the Kootenai County registration data and found the same thing, that there was twice as many people coming into just Kootenai County alone who registered as Republicans than Democrats.
Yeah.
So that whole argument that they're turning it blue just isn't.
Yeah, it just doesn't pan out in the data.
It's fair.
Yeah, and I think probably another thing too is, like, for a while there, you were hearing a lot about rhinos and people registering as Republican who are actually Democrats, and things of that nature. Which
There's
fair enough.
A few.
That probably happens. I'm sure that happens. Not on a scale large enough to affect a state like Idaho, though. You know how many people you would have to have in the Democratic Party to register as a Republican to affect the Republican primary? Now, you might have a candidate, which is what the Republican caucus or party was doing in the Kootenai County Republican Committee. One of the things they were doing was trying to vet people to keep them from coming onto the Republican ticket when they really were Democrats. That was actually happening. There were actually rhinos that were Democrats that were calling themselves Republicans because they knew that they could not win on a Democrat ticket. So that was happening. They tried to stop it by giving all these mandates. And so then some weird things happened. Like, all of a sudden, we're not funding for primaries anymore. So now we have to have these caucuses. And now you have Proposition 1 rising up, where it's like, we're going to eliminate primaries altogether, which makes you wonder, what's going on there? It seems like we're trying to remove the two-party system out of Idaho in favor of some kind of jungle primary, which is what the Prop 1 is in support of. But it's like, why did we remove the ability to have primaries in the first place, or fund primaries in the first place? I get it, right? Taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for primaries for a party that they don't agree with. Yeah. Maybe that's true, but that doesn't mean you remove it from the ticket.
Yeah.
I mean, there has to be a Republican primary. There has to be a Democratic primary. That's just part of our system. And so, this whole Prop 1 eliminating this primary kind of thing, making it all united together, it's just creepy, right? And so that's why you just need to get rid of it. But what you're saying is true. Yeah.
It's just creepy.
Yeah, it's like it's nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Right? If anything, we've gotten more red, which is freaking the Democrats out.
Yeah. Is it just creepy a conspiracy then?
Well, certainly.
I don't want to lead you down that path, Chris, because I know
no, certainly,
certainly,
but
to say it's creepy is really, that's a weird word, but I liked it when you said it. I was like,
certainly, it's a conspiracy.
Creepy.
Yeah, I mean,
where does it start? I mean,
it depends on how deep it goes. When you have a state government that stops funding primaries because they want to save the money, that's suspicious, right? But who's responsible for that?
Right. Who started?
And who started all of that? And then, then right after that, you have this whole idea that we're just going to remove the idea of primaries completely and have a jungle primary. It just is too convenient.
Yeah.
And then
that's what always happens. If you can't win in a race based on your own merits, then you call the entire system into question. You start looking for loopholes and rules and things that you can break down to make room for your lackluster performance.
And it sure seems like the Democratic Party has done that to a T.
Oh yeah,
quite effectively, especially this.
And they know
last
the
year.
power of incumbency. But once you get a Democrat in, it's very hard to get them out, and vice versa.
Yep.
There's an interesting race in Montana for the governor this year that the Democrat is in danger of being put out by a Republican,
which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Montana.
Yeah, Montana's been
They've been on
pretty
the-
traditionally Democratic for a while.
and Wyoming as well.
Yeah, which is wild. You wouldn't think that.
But you would
traditional
think those two
Democrat.
But that's the thing, right? It's like the difference between a progressive Democrat and a classically liberal Democrat.
Right.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is they're suffering because of this idea of this just extreme progressivism that has just inundated the Democratic Party. And under the flag of that progressive agenda, the Republican Party has united. And not only has it united, but it's united with other classical liberals as well. So there's just this massive vein of people that have just been like, yeah, I think we're going to vote Republican because I don't know what this party is, but it's not the Democratic Party. I don't know who they are.
Who are these guys?
Yeah, there's just
Why are
some
they
kind of other
following us?
strange thing. I don't even understand what it is. Like, would you have ever imagined, like from the time of like the 60s, 70s, right? Would you have ever imagined that it would be the Democratic Party that would be crying out for war?
Never.
They're traditionally the ones that are anti-war.
And censorship.
And censorship. Yeah.
It's-
I mean, they've always been the party of freedom and of unfettered freedom, unfettered spending, a world at peace without war. This kind of always been their thing.
Wow. Yeah.
And now their whole party is like, no, we must send more money to Ukraine so that more people can die. It's like, what happened? Like, what happened? What
Good
happened to all the
question.
beatniks and the hippies and where are all those people? When your party gets endorsed by Dick Cheney, yeah, you've got war problems because he is the epitome of a war hawk. He is a warmonger. I mean, that's where he makes his money is through the military industrial complex. So, yeah, man, it's like I think a lot of people are waking up to that. And so, and I think a lot of it, too, has been just trying to abolish people's excuses, right? So Edmund Burke once said the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And that's been the case for a long time. And I think people have had kind of universal excuses, like the first one being that there's no good options. It's like, it's only a two-party system, so I only have two options. It's like, okay, fair enough. You usually do have options, and you have to choose between those options. It's like there's a yellow light. Do I go through the yellow light or do I stop? Is there a good option for that?
Speed up or slow down.
It's like just because you have options doesn't necessarily mean that they're good or evil. I would argue, though, that there is a definite distinction between the morality of the options that you have. And as a believer, there is no other option.
Yeah, it's not vague at all.
No, it's pretty darn clear as a believer who you should be considering in this next election. And
even if it's the lesser of two evils.
It's always going to be the lesser of two evils.
Right.
I mean, you're not going to, unless you die and go to heaven, you're not going to have the option of a better or good or righteous person. In fact, the Bible says that none are righteous. No, not one.
Yep.
So if you're saying that you're not going to vote because you don't want to vote for the lesser of two evils, it's like, well, you don't really have much of a reason to live then, do you? Because your life is surrounded by evil things. Things
You're
that
always
have
picking that option
And
for everything. Yeah.
everybody that you know that is in your sphere of influence has the propensity for great evil. It's everybody. So this idea that
Even those three pastors in that bar.
yes. I
the
mean,
thing.
gosh, we have the propensity to fail
Yeah.
and do terrible things. I mean, it's just because we're human. So this whole idea that I'm going to vote for the lesser of two evils, I mean, maybe there's something to that if you're saying that I want to look at the most moral of them. But if you're saying that neither one of them is moral enough for me to vote for, then you're never going to vote because there's never going to be anybody good enough for you.
That's right.
Think about it in terms of parenting, right? We all pretty much recognize that you don't reward bad behavior.
Mm-hmm.
You reward good behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Apply that to this election. You voting for the lesser of two evils doesn't mean you're rewarding bad behavior. Cast your vote believing you're rewarding good behavior and hoping more for the good, and that hopefully when this election turns out, we'll see what the moral majority voted for, and that candidate should read that as they're rewarding my good moral behavior.
Yeah.
That's what we want to encourage.
Well, I mean, I think that, that's a great way of putting that, because if you do that, you're going to obviously see that as a believer, your choices narrow pretty quickly. Like, you should never, as a believer, be on the side that wants to murder children that have been born that don't want to be, that aren't wanted. I mean, one of the people that's running for president, their vice presidential candidate is on board with their state having post-birth abortions. These are kids that were born, that are alive, that aren't wanted, so they're not going to save their life if they need to. That's just murder.
That's horrific.
That's just murder. That's homicide. That's no longer aborticide, which is where the term abortion comes from, by the way. But we don't want to use aborticide because it sounds too much like homicide. So we need to change it so that it sounds a little bit more palatable. It's just like you can't call it a baby. You must call it a fetus, because that makes it seem like it's a little bit more like a clump of cells than a human being with feelings and emotions. So it's like that one thing right off the bat should tell you, okay, well, what candidate should I vote for? Well, I should definitely vote for the one that is for life. Which one is for peace? Which one wants to give me the most freedom? Which one wants to take away any of my freedoms?
Who can do the most good for our country and for us?
On the campaign trail, who has told the most purposeful and malicious lies? I mean, are you a supporter of truth or aren't you? Because if you're a supporter of truth, then there is definitely one candidate that you cannot support. He's definitely evil. Not the lesser of two evils. Nope, just evil. When you promote yourself as a person who is just lying all the time, that makes it pretty clear. So I don't understand the whole thing about, it's like, well, I'm not going to vote because I don't want to vote for the lesser of two evils. No, There's definitely a lesser of two evils here. I mean, as a believer, and if you're a progressive, you're obviously not going to think that.
But at the campaign, when the young man yelled out, "Jesus is King," and I think there was another one that Jesus is Lord, and one of the representatives, a female, shouted out, "I think you're at the wrong rally."
Yeah,
it was Kamala.
Yeah, her initials are Kamala Harris.
I know it was Kamala. I was trying to be nice.
You don't have to be. We can support.
We can support.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so
I mean, that's just a matter of fact.
If you're a Christian, I want you to know that she is not, and she does not support Christianity or morals.
Oh no,
in any way, shape, or form.
No, in fact, she thinks that we're pretty terrible.
At least Biden tried to fake it.
Yeah.
She doesn't even hide it. She doesn't fake it at all.
No. Well, that's because she is part of this extreme kind of progressive liberalism that has inundated her and all of the people that have attended universities that follow after her. It's the academics of the world that think that, we're too stupid to really, know how to handle things. So we need to have things toned down for us. That is a thing. Like academia and people that are graduating from colleges right now that are going into technical fields, they really do think that the rest of America is too stupid to handle making choices and decisions. They really think that. I know this to be true because you see it in entertainment. Like, there's a video game that just came out called Dragon Age, and there's been a long line of games that came out before it that have been decent, right? They're fantasy games, RPG, role-playing kind of games, and this last one that came out, they just filled it with progressive ideology. All the dialogues there's one dialogue in there where one of the people that's sitting around this campfire misgenders someone, so they self-punish themselves by doing push-ups and then come back and correct themselves by saying, I should have used they, them, not she, her. And it's like...
In a video game.
In a video game, right? And then there's another one where a girl is talking about how she's uncomfortable being a female, that she's always really felt more comfortable being like a male. And they're having this conversation about getting her lined up with other women who have struggled with that really feel like they're out of place in their skin, and see if they can get her some help for that. It's like, that's kind of the thing that's put in there. Now, here's the thing, right? All of those games up to this point have been challenging games to play. This game, they give you all of the solutions for all the puzzles in dialogue before you even do the puzzles. All the combat is dumbed down to where you don't really need any kind of skill at all to do it. Basically, what they're saying is, we have come to preach to you about the way that you need to communicate to transgender people, and we know that you're not smart enough to figure these things out, so we're going to dumb the game down so that it fits within your intelligence level. That's kind of what the statement.
Comply and follow the leader.
Yep.
No gamer left behind.
And that culture is just rejecting it out of hand. They're just like, no, this is stupid. I want things to be challenging. This is stupid.
Go in and... No,
here's an interesting.
I won't even go.
Here's another thing, right? Just on that same topic, right? One of the things they've been doing in a lot of these games here recently is they've been taking out the sexualized female. So any female that has curves or is attractive sexually, they pulled them out in favor of more kind of masculine kind of traits, kind of framed figures, or figures that would be found in reality, right? Which, okay, fair enough, right? That's the way women really are. They're not really like these fantasy girls, right? And the whole thing was, we're doing that to abolish misogyny, right? But this university did this study, and they made it so that there was this game, and the women, they pulled a whole bunch of women to play this game. Women ages like 16 to 40, right? And in this process, you were able to create your own character, and you had all these options, right? You could make them as masculine as you wanted, or you could make them as feminine, as sexualized as you wanted. And the majority of women created a overly sexualized fantasy woman. Why? Because the point of video games is detachment. They don't want to be in reality. They want to be somewhere else. So this is kind of the point, right? But they're too stupid to see this, right? The progressives, they just want you to fit within their narrative. That's it. You don't get to be different. Like, you must be this. And I think that's part of the reason why people are just fed up with it. And it's just pure. You might say, well, man, sexualization of women, that's an evil, terrible thing. And it's like, well, maybe from our point of view it is. But also, as an American, you should have the freedom to be able to do that if you want, right? Because that's what freedom is. And when you start rejecting that, that's when something is evil. When somebody's starting to take away your rights, it's like everybody's talking about how Trump is a fascist. It's like, no, the progressive left, they are the fascists. Yeah, they are. They want an authoritative rule where you fall into their narrative and you have no other choice. That's fascism by definition. So there is definitely a lesser of two evils that you need to support. Not that you might think about supporting, but that you need to. Because, man, this progressivism that's rising up is
ugly.
It's vile. it's going to be the detriment of our country if we don't do something about it, right? So that's a ridiculous excuse. Let's see. What are some of these other ones? There's no good options, but then it is always it will always be a race to the bottom. Is one of the things they say that's what the primary elections are for, right? So it's always a race to the bottom to see who can be the worst, or whatever, or who can be. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of what you do primaries for, is to pick who's going to be the better of the worst, right? This is kind of the way these people think. I'm protesting the bad options by abstaining altogether.
Hello.
In the words of Rush, when you choose not to decide, you've still made a choice.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Think about that. It's absolutely true. We can't turn one thing into something different just because it's convenient for us. Your inaction doesn't teach anybody a moral lesson, and that's true. Yeah, your inaction doesn't show anybody. Oh, I'll show them. I just won't show up. That's what people who are suicidal think. It's like, well, they'll just be sad when I'm not here. It's like, well, they'll be sad for a little while, but guess what? They're going to get over it. Everybody does. So, that's terrible thinking. It's like, well, I'll teach them. I just won't vote. It's like, good job. Good job. The right to vote is not a tool for you to virtue signal with. It's a responsibility. That's a great phrase, Ken. Yeah, the right to vote it's a responsibility. It's not a tool for you to utilize. Yeah. There's so much election interference that my vote won't really matter. Okay, well, unless everybody participates, and then there will be no question. If every Christian in the nation voted with their conscience and voted biblical standards, you wouldn't be able to cheat enough. Yeah. Your cheating would have to be so flagrant as to be obvious. There's just no way you could carry the day. So it's like you're not voting because you just don't think it's going to matter because of election fraud. You're just helping them to win. Really, you're helping the fraudsters to win. So you should probably stop doing that. If you don't vote and you claim it is unscriptural to participate in the political process, you don't understand complete scripture correctly. Yeah. One of the things I always tell people that say that kind of thing, it's like, well, I don't belong to the United States of America. I belong to the kingdom of God. And so therefore I don't have to vote because, I'm not part of that kingdom. It's like, no, you are part of that kingdom because you're obeying the laws every day of the week, whether you think that you are or not. And the very fact that you have property here is a exhibition of your personal rights. If do you own a phone? Have you bought a phone? Do you own a house? Do you own property? Do you own a car? Well, these are all your private property, personal rights that you have as an American citizen that you're enjoying, that you're saying you're not a part of. So it's like, it doesn't make a lot of sense for you to not participate in the political process, the things that direct these things. And if you are an agent of morality and truth and you don't vote, what you're saying is I'm okay with the opposite prevailing. And then you might say, well, God is in control, so I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to vote because I know that God's going to put in there whoever he wants. It's like, well, who do you think he's going to use to put in the people that he wants?
The voting process.
It's such a...
And it's so presumptuous to believe you foresee the will of God every 4 years, how he's going to use that election.
Yeah.
That's
Either
just
way.
presumptuous.
Yeah. You've been given the responsibility in Scripture to obey the authority of the land. And Scripture puts it as obey your masters, right? And then it talks about how the government has been given the authority by God to wield the sword against those that would do evil, right? So if you're in a nation that your master is the people and you are the people, then that means that you are your own authority and your vote is the authority of the nation. So for you to say that I'm not going to vote because I'm not going to get involved with the political process because I'm a Christian and I don't want to be involved in that stuff. It's like, well, okay, you don't have a choice. You are scripturally mandated to obey the laws of your land. And you are the creator of the laws of your land. Mm-hmm. You are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's well said.
And so, yeah, you're just dismissing. You're relinquishing your authority to lesser men. Yeah. When God has given you the God-given right to make your voice known. That's what this country was founded on. And it's your responsibility to follow through on that. So, yeah, that's invalid. The whole idea that, I don't get involved with politics. It's like, yeah, you do. You may not actively get involved with politics, but you do get involved with politics.
You're living it.
Yep, because the politics that get into office are the politics that you live by. And I promise you that you're feeling the effects of it. Mm-hmm. If you've lived the last 4 years, you've definitely felt the effects of it. Every time you go buy a loaf of bread.
Or get gas.
Yep. Or have a gas leak in your truck that's leaking gas all over the pavement. That's a thing.
Is that what I smell when
I gotta call CNL, get in there. It's got a leak by the gas tank. I've been smelling it for a while, but it hasn't been bad. But now it's just really gotten bad. And like I went out and get wood, and my truck was going, and I was walking back, and I looked at it, it was just trickling.
Oh, you can
out.
see it.
It's just okay, it was like, okay, well, please don't smoke around my truck, okay? Because we're all gonna die. So anyways,
slash piles.
I got to get that handled today. Anyways, if you don't vote because you don't know who to vote for, you're being lazy. Well put, Ken.
Just kind of bottom line.
It is true. Yeah.
I mean,
it doesn't take a lot.
You kind of have to avoid the information that's being sent to you and made available to you to stay with your head in the ground. It's just too easy.
And you might say that, well, I don't pay attention because I can't trust the media. It's like, well, my goodness, there's so many sources for information now that you can parse through that you don't. I haven't listened to mainstream media in years. Mm-hmm. It's like, what's the point? I know they're lying to me, so I don't listen to them at all. I get all my news from independent sources, period. Yeah. And whether or not they're true or not, I can figure that out on my own pretty easily.
Well, and we've just argued here extensively. You don't need somebody else's information to help you decide who to vote. If you've read your Bible, it's made the case for you, and the candidates have made their positions clear on moral issues that there really is no question who to vote for. If you're just even going to just vote biblical values, ignore the name, and you'll do fine.
Yeah.
And, we've also, I think we've touched on it, but don't miss the point that this isn't one vote for one of two people. This is a vote, and there's other issues on the ballot that are going to be determined. And so you saying, I'm not going to vote. Well, you're leaving so much out.
Yeah.
Not just a presidential campaign, but there's other people that we're voting for. There's issues that we're voting for. You got to get out.
It's a real important election for the North Idaho College trustee board.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's going to have huge ramifications as to who gets in there.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. A lot of school board stuff.
You probably know who those people are. I'd be willing to say that there's probably a large majority of people in our community that don't even know who's running for that. Mm-hmm. They'll look at the ballot on Tuesday, and that'll be the first time they've ever seen any of those names.
Seen that name, yeah.
Any of them, yeah. Mm-hmm. There's quite a few. So if you don't vote, you give more weight to someone else's vote for the opponent. So, yeah, your vote, if you don't vote, doesn't cancel out one of your opponent's votes. Mm-hmm. You just allow them to kind of go forward. If you don't vote, you should voluntarily forfeit your right to complain. That's a common thing. Like if you don't vote, you don't get to complain.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably an argument against that, but anyways, yeah, it is right. It's theoretically hypocritical to complain if you don't vote.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be involved in the process, you definitely should vote.
I've actually used that in many arguments.
Yeah.
You get in the middle of an argument at
like,
somebody and say, "Did you vote?"
Who'd
no.
you vote for?
Well, then shut up.
Yeah, what are you complaining about?
You got nothing to say.
It's like walking into a restaurant and say, well, I'll just take the special. I didn't see whatever it is, but I'll just take the special. And then it comes and you're like, I hate fried liver.
Yeah.
Well, you could have ordered the filet mignon, but you didn't.
Yeah.
So
it's like,
beggars can't be choosers.
yeah, you get what you get.
I like
If you
liver.
don't vote, you don't fully understand freedom or American history or what it means to be an American, or how envious a lot of people in the world are of the freedom that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take that for granted, man. So, man, I would say if you're listening to this on the Monday before election, or if you've heard it after, I would say that when it comes time to vote, you need to be there. And if you're able to listen to this, if we can get this out today, which I'm not sure if we can or not, but if we can, it's like
And
tomorrow is the day.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's the day.
And if you know people who are saying they're not going to vote or don't know who to vote for,
Yeah.
or they have not made plans, they're on the fence somehow, some way, ask them to listen to this. Hopefully it'll change their mind.
Yeah. And if you don't know what the issues are, go to voteidaho.gov. The supervisor of elections has done an amazing job this time around of getting information out there of what's on the ballot. They really have, man. They sent out this newsletter, this newspaper, basically, that had all the things that were going to be on the ballot that you could vote for statewide. Man, it's been an election year filled with information, which has been refreshing. Maybe one of the reasons why there's so many people registering. It's like people have made a big deal out of it. If you're listening to this on Tuesday, Election Day, and you haven't sent in an absentee ballot, or you haven't already had plans to go down and vote, stop what you're doing, go vote. Just go down there. It's not a big deal. You drive down, stand in line for a minute, you go, you make a couple of marks on a ballot, and then you leave. It's not difficult.
It's not going to take long.
You could even witness for Christ while you're standing in line.
Yep. You could do
Imagine that.
You could dance a jig. You could play a guitar and sing a song.
Finish your coffee.
Wave your flag.
You could wave your flag.
Yeah.
Kim's going to wear her
Depends on the flag.
Make Chili Great Again shirt.
T-shirt.
I made chili great again.
She's got a shirt. That's part of her
What
prize.
she won.
Make
chili cook-off.
Make Chili Great Again. Yeah, so Maca.
It's a real thing.
Yeah. If you're listening to this after the election and you voted, thank you for your service to your country. You are part of the solution.
Yeah.
If you are listening to this after the election and you didn't vote, shame on you. Correct that flaw in your character and go vote next time you have the opportunity.
And by the way, you can't complain.
Yeah, no complaining for you.
Don't come to our bar and complain.
Proverbs 29:2 gives us some insight into this. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked man rules, the people groan. Lots of groaning going on right now.
I want to be rejoicing.
Yep, you want to be rejoicing. Ken, you got any final words?
Wow, we've said a lot this time through. I think we've made our point. Next week, we're going to try and do an episode on the election results, whatever they are to that point. So we'll be recording that less than a week after the election has occurred. It might all be up in the air. There might be
who knows?
Smoke in the skies. Who knows what's going to happen? But if you want to hear what we have to say about the outcome, tune in next week to this podcast. We're going to do our best to try and give you an overview from a moral perspective as to what's going on, and hopefully some ideas of how you can move your life forward based on those results.
Yeah. It's good. Greg?
In the famous words of Chris Antone.
Mm.
Doesn't
Wise
matter
man.
what happens. Our job doesn't change, and that is to preach Christ
Yep.
to everyone
Yep.
that we come into contact with. So, there's a lot of rhetoric. There's a lot of emotional highs and lows in this, but bottom line is, Jesus is Lord.
Guess what? Nobody can vote God off his throne.
That's true.
That's true. Amen
That's
to
true.
that. Amen
I mean,
to
you could
that.
try. They try.
Oh, yeah.
But it
Yeah,
doesn't
you're
work.
at the wrong rally.
Doesn't work out in their favor. Yeah. All right. Well, that about does it for us today. As always, thank you for listening and for joining us. If you have a comment or a question or an idea for an episode, send us an email to 3p@athelbaptistchurch.org. If your idea gets used in an episode, you could be the proud recipient of the now world infamous 3P coffee mug. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks again to Athel Baptist Church and its members for their generous support of this ministry. And again, thank you for listening. And until next time, remember the Great Commission. Go into all the world, reach the lost with the gospel, and build disciples who can do the same. And with that, we are out.